It's our priority.
We're going to teach you this song. Come on, sing it. I said,
Yeah, I was waiting for them. So I was waiting for the voucher to happen so that we can start with the meeting.
Join our live from the city of Johannesburg. Rejoina jalo tulagano mogaetso gompieno go lebella maemo a ile go rafa rogane ile go itshegetsa jalo ke the speaker of council mogaetso mo le gore tlo go tsa jalo nna le re tsama jalo bile re tsama le Bo Manyoni mogaetso chairperson of the Municipal Demarcation Board. Ereke ba bogela bagolo ba rona mamnwele dumela.
Dumela ntate Hans, ke dumedise go wena, ke dumedise mo ba mamedi kaofela, ke dumedise to all Joburgers. I'm saying good evening. Give a mogele in the talk with myself, the Speaker of Council. We are live on various platforms such as the City of Joburg social media platforms, as well as my own page, which is Nongeba Mulwele on Facebook and at speaker_COJ on Twitter. I also want to inform our viewers and our listeners that we are also live on Jozi FM until 7 p.m. Following which we will then take the stream and play it on Eldos FM from 8 until 9 p.m. Today, we are also joined by two new partners, which are Radio Islam and Eastwave FM. Rahula, more meeting. We also welcome Chai FM, who will stream the show tomorrow morning as per usual, Kausanika Thursday from 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much to all the community media who partnered with us. We appreciate your partnership because you play a key role in sharing this education series with our communities. Greetings to my co-host, Dr. Bele Fundi Lenyati, and greetings to you, Hape Ntate Hans. All of you, Moruna. Dr. Nyati is also our longtime partner who ensures that these shows happen every week. He is our resident doctor who is also making waves in the area of community, civic education. Greetings to all listeners, all our viewers, all our leadership present, officials, and a special greeting to my guest, wa namhlanje, ubaba, President Wam, Mr. Thabo Manyoni, the chairperson of the Demarcation Board. Ladies and gentlemen, these engagements are for the sole purpose of educating our communities on the business of council. And today, sizobe si unpack ward delimitation process ye local government. We know ukuthi abantu bethu abaningi, they would blame councillors and say ukhansela banibani ufuna ngiphumele ngaphandle kwe-ward, ufuna ngiphumele ngaphandle kwe-VD, ungikhiphela ngaphandle. Namhlanje we are going to hear about the process nokuthi kimang hantle owetsang demarcation and why. Every 5 years, the Municipal Demarcation Board, eribitsang MDB, delimits wards in metropolitan and local municipalities for electoral purposes. So yetsagala all the time masiyaguma elections where local government. In summary, wards are delimited or determined by the MDB, like ikichilo gore asi di councilora, asi runa, asi maspala, but ki MDB owetsa di delimitation tsa di wards. This involves the division of the whole geographic area of a municipality into smaller geographic areas, ebitswang ka gore ke di wards. Consultations with planning and geographical information management officials from municipalities let the MDB align draft wards by considering local inputs and addressing geographic barriers. And the whole process must be concluded ideally not less than 10 months before Riago local government elections like Ichilo. Mara, include a input by the communities. lead councillor. I must say that in this delimitation cycle, there have been various concerns raised by our communities and our councillors. I therefore thought it prudent to create a platform where we can engage with the demarcations team, directly, so that our communities begin to fully understand the process, the importance, therefore, the criteria used in the delimitation process, the stakeholders involved, public participation process, and how all of this affects them as the ordinary citizens. We invite community members to engage us namhlanje and make their input or comments on the various platforms that we have made available. Delimitation, demarcation, by whom? Let me welcome my guest this evening, who is Mr. Thabo Manyoni, the chairperson of the Municipal Demarcation Board, who is a man of many accolades. Mr. Manyoni was the first executive mayor of the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, a Free State province. He was also the president of SALGA, the South African Local Government Association. Mr. Manyoni was a member of parliament, and he is a political activist and local government practitioner who has worked extensively towards the empowerment of disadvantaged communities through education and training, among many other positions that he has held in the public sphere. I know very well, Horinali, we've been to UCLG as well. He has also been international in terms of local government issues. So, bathi nguThambo dala kade bemqongqotha Dr. Nyathi ngesixhosa, bathi nguDiza dala kade bemkhwahlaza uTatu Manyoni. So there's a lot of information esizoyifumana kuye. Thank you very much for joining us, Tate Manyoni. We are honored to have you on our platform, and welcome to your team as well. I know that you are not alone. So let's get straight into it without waste of time. Perhaps before I hand over to Mr. Hans, let me start by simply asking Ubabu Manyoni, what is the concept of ward delimitation, Tate Manyoni? And perhaps in answering that question, if you could touch on the legislative framework or what the law says about the delimitation process. We are here to empower our communities. Over to you, Tate Manyoni, just briefly. Then after you, Colin Hans will then take over the co-hosting. Thank you very much.
Are we getting Re Manyoni? Re Thabo Manyoni?
Okay.
Mokgaitsho, re tla leka jalo go bona Re Thabo Manyoni, the chairperson of the Municipal Demarcation Board. Hantse re lukisa jalo, ga re ke bone a tsena jalo. Madam Speaker, ke batla go bona wa tsena Re Manyoni.
Wa tsena Re Manyoni. I'm not sure whether Tate Manyoni, did you capture what transpired, what I was saying before you were kicked out?
My speaker, in most cases, I couldn't get hold of you properly because of connectivity problems, but it doesn't matter. The last time I heard you, you were introducing me, Bamami, listeners of your community stations.
Okay. We are calling Hans Jano mo Josie FM re tla tsa thulaganyo jaaka ke le no tsamisa le jalo le speaker of council. Potso a ntlha Re Manyoni ke go botsa gore please take us through the ward delimitation process, including its legislative framework.
Thank you very much, our host. Thank you, speaker. Thank you, participants, councillors also in this platform. First, the intention of ward delimitation solely is for election purposes. Hence, when we are finished with the process, we hand over the maps to IEC for the IEC to start plotting the voting districts and voting stations in the country. This process restarted some years ago from 2019, when we were bringing awareness to communities. And I must also indicate, it started immediately after the minister has determined the number of councillors in some of the municipalities as per the formula that is determined by the minister herself in this case. And then the MECs, Matuna, in all provinces, they follow suit. Lebonaba determined the number of councillors in respective municipalities where they are responsible. When that exercise is finalized, we then come in as the demarcation board, using the information that we have from the MECs in provinces, including, of course, the number of voters that participated in the previous election. In this regard, I will be referring to the number of voters that participating in our elections, national elections 2011. I must indicate in Gauteng, we could not have additional councillors because in terms of the formula, when I say Gauteng, I'm referring specifically to Johannesburg, not other municipalities. The Joburg city has reached its maximum in terms of the number of wards that it should have. We are having in Joburg 135 wards. But unfortunately, you'll find that the number of voters and potential voters has been increasing. Whether you have only 135 votes. People still, because of migration, urbanization, they move into the city center. And we are compelled. I will say the rationale behind this being compelled is to try to have an equitable number of voters in each and every ward per municipality. So we are compelled to look into the number of potential voters in each and every ward. And as I've indicated, in the city of Joburg, we had an increase in the number of voters. We had an increase of more than 100,000 voters since the elections started 2016. In other words, in terms of the IE stats, we have 2.3 million voters in this city. And we have to make sure that then we have that equitable distribution of voters in each and every ward out of the 135 wards. That gives us, if you divide that number of 2.3 million with the number of wards, 135 wards, you then get the number of allowed voters per ward. And in our case here, the city of Johannesburg, the number of allowed voters, it is about, let's say, 17,000 people who basically are allowed to be voters in a particular ward. The law allows us to go above this norm, 15%, or be below that norm, 15% also. That is what we do. And you'll find that simply because of the increase in the number of potential voters, there then will be changes in the wards, internal wards. That's where the ward delimitation. And that's where we basically come in and discuss the matters, of course, with the relevant stakeholders and publish our wards for communities to make inputs, stakeholders, relevant bodies that want to make inputs, take into consideration their livelihood in those areas and, of course, factors that are affecting the areas where they are. This process, of course, is also regulated in terms of the Act. When we have published, the communities are expected then to respond to the publications within a stipulated period, 14 days, which we consider, of course, to be a very short period for now. But that is what the Act is indicating at the moment. Other matters will be dealt with as we do the review. After that 14 days period, we look into the inputs, the objections, and so forth. And if the objections are fitting the criteria that we are using, then we consider them. If they don't, of course, they then get rejected. We look into the issues. For instance, the norm that I mentioned, that the submission should comply with that norm. We also look into issues like we should not create unnecessary split on voting districts, because when our people are used to voting somewhere, they would not want tomorrow to be told, you are no more voting in that area, you are voting in a tent somewhere. So we try to make sure that we don't split the voting district, but that doesn't mean in all cases the voting district would not be distracted. In some cases, we are forced, obviously, to make changes there. The other issue that we are looking into in terms of the criteria is to try to make sure that we stick within the visible boundaries, the rivers, the valleys, so that people don't have to cross the rivers, valleys to go and vote on other sides and so on. The main roads, in some cases, we have to look into those. Although, of course, if we are compelled to meet the criteria of the norm, which is more critical than any other, you might also have changes in those situations. But unnecessarily, we would not want to split communities in terms of, maybe people who are living in a hostel area, people who consider themselves to be one community and so forth. We look into those matters. As long as they meet the norm, then we would try not to disrupt communities in those situations. But that is the criteria we use in looking into this exercise, to make sure that at least when the IEC moves in, it doesn't have a ward where they would be, obviously, let's say, accommodating 1 million voters, when in other wards, they will only be accommodating 10 voters, 20 voters, and so on. And it then becomes cumbersome for the IEC to run smooth elections. I'm just trying to give a broad stroke, yes, but I think as listeners come in to ask for specific clarities and so on, we will then be able to engage in that regard. Let me indicate that I'm also accompanied by the CEO of the Demarcation Board, Mututo Stigiti. I'm also accompanied by specialists on matters pertaining to ward delimitations who are working in the board. Bontate Daniel Subake, Bo Abdi Tabiso Plank, Bo Abdi Faisal Patel, and we also have the COO of the MDB, Aluwani. They also will be adding more to make sure that at least we all get clarity. Thanks very much, our host.
For our listeners, Gara, only got 7 minutes. I wanted to throw as much, but I like it that you laid the foundation of everything that we wanted to know. But then the difference in between the demarcation and the delimitation, we know that some municipalities oppose to being meshed with other municipalities. Now, I just want to find out, in the situation that you said, Rona, the city of Joburg, we've reached the ceiling. Yeah, we cannot expand, we cannot do what's already 135. I just want to find out, for historical purposes, Remanyoni, with all, unforeseen circumstances that Soweto decides to say, we want to be our own municipality, a municipality within, a city. can that be looked into if a situation of that nature may arise?
Thank you, our presenter. Let me say yes. If that situation arises, we will consider the matter. In some cases, as you know, in the country, there are citizens, communities that are saying, we don't want to belong to, let's say, the city of Johannesburg. We want to belong to Ekohulweni. Those are what we call outer boundaries in terms of municipalities. Of course, we also consider those. But what we have decided in this term as this board is that obviously we need to deal with ward delimitations, in other words, internal boundaries of wards, and then post our local government elections, our 2021 elections, we will then consider those applications that are looking into external boundaries. Yes, for sure. If Soweto meets the criteria, we will then obviously consider that. In other words, we will look into the number of the citizens in that area. We will look into interconnectivity. We'll look into economic activities. We will look into transportation networks. We look into certain number of factors, and then we can then be able to say, yes, this area, it really qualifies to be a council on its own. So those would be matters that we'll be looking into, an application that we'll be considering post our local government elections. In other words, starting after our local government elections, that have started to engage with communities that have made those submissions and those that will be forthcoming in this regard. Now, coming to the one that we are looking into at the moment, I must indicate that with wards that we're working with, the areas that got more affected in the city of Johannesburg, Kibo, Midrand, Diepsloot, Nooitgedacht, Soweto, and southeastern parts of the city, because the city is highly populated, of course. So you'll find that almost 37%, that is 50 of the wards that we're talking about out of 135, they got affected by this exercise. We'll go deeper when the communities are asking questions. Thanks very much, our presenter.
I'm just going to steal all this time because of Mo Khaifa. Hakibone, the number di tsena, number am khalandane 24495921141. If there's anybody who likes to ask the Demarcation Board on issues that delimitation, Mo Khaitse le bone le demarcation. Now, I've seen it idiragala re manyoni ka kgang ya seponesa, policing an area. You find the historical demarcation ya seponesa, it's unfavorable. But then you fitlhela to a point ya gore seponesa, whether they go through you, coming to you to make an inquiry to say, we would like to change the demarcation of policing areas. Do you work with such situations, or the police will then decide with this head of police to say this demarcation is unfavorable for our operation and it has to be actually into the area area?
Yes, thanks very much, our presenter. You know, your question really, key questions we also have been grappling with. You'll find, for instance, the example that you are making about the police station. A person just stays around the police station, the Kabakala Demarcation. The person is told, you can't report a case. You know, the police station is just a street away. He has to go, or she has to go and report the case in another police station, which is quite a distance from where the person is. Unfortunately, that situation, it is not only obviously on the police station, but obviously the police station is the relevant example. It also applies to SASA offices, you know, home affairs, matters, and so forth. That was a decision that was taken by cabinet previously to say, let's have this type of services also linked to the demarcation processes in terms of the wards. It is not necessarily an act that stipulated that these services should also be in line with the ward delimitation. We have also looked into these matters, and we also will be talking to Home Affairs and the relevant department, making our inputs, that in some cases, it is quite difficult to give services to communities when you link the service with this criteria of ward delimitation, particularly in the instance that I've also made an example about if you are staying nearer to a police station, but you have to travel to another police station. I am saying that arrangement was a cabinet decision. It was not necessarily a decision as per the Municipal Demarcation Act. Thanks very much.
Now, a parting shot before I hand over to Mamolwele. Ntate Manyoni, ke rata go itse ka kgang ya the responsibility of a demarcation board in the new dispensation ya democracy. Common sense only tells me that there could have been a serious drive where you reconcile and look at the situation and say, before it was like this because of the government, now that we are in dispensation, wasn't it also part of the task to say reconcile so that we can actually make this into law to say the way things were done were just absolutely nonsense?
Definitely, you definitely are right. When we started in this country, de-racialize the South African landscape, and also to make sure that you've got municipalities that are not segregated, like in the past where you used to have black local authorities, used to have white local authorities, you used to have rural councils, and so forth. So our role during that time was to de-racialize, harmonize the landscape via local government, make sure that all municipalities are serving common South African, doesn't matter whether they are black or white. That exercise, obviously, in a way, one can say it has been concluded. But nonetheless, the issue of space, it's quite dynamic. And the issue of integration, we still have a long way to go, as you know, that our former black townships are still like that, black townships mostly. Former white areas and white suburbs, your Midrand and so on, are still predominantly considered as such. And two, the other issue that we mainly also have to consider is this issue that I highlighted earlier when we were talking about the ward delimitation, in trying to make sure that the space is in such a manner that voters don't necessarily congregate in one area massively, and in some other areas, you don't get the number of voters who also can participate in exercising their constitutional right. So those are the issues mainly at the moment we are looking into. I must also indicate, now that you said your passing shot, that at the moment we also are doing a research, of course, with our partners, the province of Gauteng and other partners, where we are looking into how do we resolve this issue now that we have met the limit in terms of councillors in the city of Johannesburg, number of councillors 270, and we've got this number of wards. There has been an argument that we need to consider the city of Joburg and turn it into what is known or called the Greater Joburg region, where we would also, in a way, look into smaller municipalities that are surrounding the city of Johannesburg and expand the space of this city so that it can then be able to develop for developmental purposes for linkages with outer municipalities that are surrounding the city and so forth. So we are also looking into that city region concept, specifically for the city of Johannesburg, the city of eThekwini, and also the city of Cape Town. But the compelling case mainly now is this city, the city of Johannesburg, because of the number of people, the influx when it comes to internal migration to the city. Thanks very much.
Ke go fa tsotlhe nna ke a leboga bagolo ba me re tla tswela jalo beke e tlang ke a le leboga Arjana ke tle ke fe Mamolele dithapo tsotlhe tsa gagwe. Speaker.
The discussion Monday to
Ntate Hansi ke lebogile go monagane ke a complaina gore nako ya gago is too short. I'm sure next time at least it's going to extend until 7:30. Otherwise, thank you to Josie FM and thank you to listeners. You spoke, Lintate Hans, about from the derationalization from the apartheid era to where we are today. You have outlined the process. Mara potso ya ka ya ntlha ke gore, what are the challenges in the delimitation process? Ke a tseba gore in the process o buile ka inputs and objections, of which you will find gore different political parties have different requests or different objections from you. O mong o batla what e itseng e ko left, o mong o batla e ko right, o mong o batla e remain mo e leng teng. O mong o shebile gore hey, how VD ya ka e ya ka mo right or ka mo left ke tlo lose power and so on. So how do you then determine gore ke mang or which objection or which input do you take out of different inputs from difficult political parties? And if you can just outline the challenges thereof. Yourself or your team. Okay, it looks like Ndate Manyoni is kicked out. Oh, okay, you're here. All right.
Thank you. I'm back again, my speaker. Yes, Honorable Speaker, there are lots of interest in this exercise. Of course, it's a highly politically charged exercise, as you are indicating, because any other party might deem it, or we have decided not in its favor and so forth. But let me indicate that we are compelled by the Act to be an independent body, just like the IEC. And two, there is a criteria that we are using to come to a determination. As I indicated in the introductory inputs, the main issue is the norm. Until what we do, we don't care who has made an input, whichever party. We only look into whether the input, the objection, meets the criteria that I outlined earlier in terms of the norm, not unnecessarily splitting the communities, not considering the natural boundaries, the rivers, the valleys, as I indicated, not dividing the ward unnecessarily. We need to have a contiguous ward, a united ward, in other words. We look into those factors. If your submission meets those factors, then we consider it. If it doesn't, your objection doesn't meet some of those factors, obviously it doesn't get considered. And I must indicate, members, listeners, political party leaders who are here, if a member is not happy, the member can approach the board, and the board must be able to explain how it came to a determination or a decision that it came up with. But of course, yes, Honorable Speaker, in most cases, most of the political parties would not be happy Where one political party is happy, obviously others would not be happy. Where others are happy, obviously it will not be happy. So there are those issues, but Tina, for our sake, because these matters can be litigated, we make sure that we just stick to the criteria so that even if we go to court or even if we go to communities, we are able to explain our decision in terms of the criteria. Thanks very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Tate Manyoni. Let's hear what our viewers are saying. Let's hear their question from Sipo. What are the viewers saying? And then after Sipo, I will give to Rafik if Rafik is here, because I know Rafik from IEC that he has also been receiving a lot of complaints, especially from the councillors. So maybe he can just ask questions on behalf of the people who have complained from him, so that the team here, Tate Manyoni, can respond. And we try to cover almost all the questions within the short space of time. Sipo, can we hear what our viewers are saying?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Also, let me thank Eldos FM, who's currently streaming this broadcast live at the moment. Also to thank East Wave Radio as well as Radio Islam for really partnering with us on this conversation. Madam, just the comments on Facebook that are coming through. The first one comes from Zola Manake, says, good evening to everyone. Today, we are going to be empowered with the knowledge about ward delimitation and demarcation processes. Noktula says, thank you, Speaker, for unpacking the municipal demarcation process to empower our communities. And Lerato K. Bob says, thank you for this progressive program, Madam Speaker. We are learning a lot. And Anampesi says, thank you, Speaker, well understood. I think the only question or comment that might need a response is one from Carol Lewin, who says, please spend your time fixing our Ward 117, and then you don't have to move the boundary to take it from the DA. Otherwise, you have 0 votes coming your way. So if there can be any comments from there, we'll look out for more comments as they come in, Madam Speaker. That's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Sipo, and thank you very much to our viewers for asking those questions. We're inviting more questions and clarity so that by the end of this session, we are all clarified on how demarcation and delimitation happens. Rafik, are you ready to ask some questions on behalf of the councillors that have been complaining to you?
I believe Rafik has been kicked out, Madam Speaker, but there is CDE Cisco whose hand is up.
Okay. Councillor Cisco?
Thank you very much. At least they will just cover the question that I want to raise. On the issue of the population of the ward, that is 20,000, 28,000 or more, in terms of the less registered voters, how this affect the service delivery, because these people, their population is too high, but in terms of the voting, there might be 17 or norm, the one of the norm. How can this affect the service delivery going forward? And the other issue is the issue that the Madam Speaker has outlined in terms of the questionnaire, 14 days stipulated for public comment, objection, and inputs. I think you have covered that. And the other issue, I think the public participation is very much important on the ward boundaries and the municipal boundaries, because there are people who don't understand this black line and the orange line and the stuff. I think the public education is needed there. We need to emphasize it further and further. But otherwise, at least everything I had it in terms of the procedure and processes. I thank you, Madam Speaker. That was my observation. Sure.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cisco Pahati, for that observation. Maybe before Tate Manyoni and the team responds, let me hear from the who are on board. Dr. Nyati, do you have any question or comment?
No question really. Now that you're forcing me to ask a question, are there time frames, by which these demarcations should be done before it's actually time for local elections? To say, must be done within the first two years or whatever. Is there a time frame by which this is done so that people don't expect demarcations to take place when it's already after the time has been closed?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Pele. Maybe before the team responds, I hope. Hello. Yes.
Rafik is back on the platform.
Oh, I see Rafik is back. Refs, I said on behalf of the councillors and people who have been complaining to you as IEC, because you are sometimes the mouthpiece of MDB in presenting the changes. If you could just ask questions or comments so that the MDB can clarify. Unmute, Rafik. Okay, it looks okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Rafik.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening to the listeners. Yes, thanks for this opportunity, Madam Speaker. Yeah, as you know, the first port of call when changes happen is that the communities flock to the IEC and the city's offices, where they then demand changes. We explained to them that these are not our processes, it actually is the MDB processes. But with what is currently happening, all the changes that's been handed to us, we have now consulted and we have displayed all the maps to all the councillors and stakeholders within the city. These changes will then probably kick in just before, or let me say after the last by-elections, before the local government elections. Then we will go out to the communities where there was major changes. We will then go in and we will do targeted communication and registration. In some cases, only targeted communication. In some cases, we will also re-register voters who have been affected by the movements.
Okay. Are you done, Rafik?
Yes, ma'am. For now, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope that Tate Manyoni and the team have been jotting down the questions. Maybe in response, also just indicate how important public participation process is and how should it be rolled out? How should we improve public participation from the experience maybe of this year, especially during the COVID pandemic? Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Manyoni and your team.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Yes, my team will respond to the issues that have been raised. But of course, let me just address your last point. My team will respond on the issue of time frames. They will also respond on the issue of the word delimitation, its impact on service delivery. Let me also thank Zola's input, Lerato, and obviously I won't have much to say on fixing of what 117, Honorable Speaker. That is your exercise. But from what you indicated, Honorable Speaker, we realize that public participation is quite important. I think for the past few years, 10 years or so, the demarcation board was an animal that South Africans didn't know about, although it was having an impact on their lives and livelihoods in terms of the decisions that it has been taking. We decided to embark on a massive public participation process earlier, as I indicated, that this exercise was there starting from end of 2018, 2019, when we were looking into draft words and so on. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, whilst we were busy with the issue of consulting municipalities, communities, we were then faced with this pandemic of COVID-19. In the of Gauteng, the only municipality which we could have what I would term face-to-face interaction, in other words, having under one roof interaction with communities, it was in Ekohulweni. And all other municipalities in the Gauteng province, we could not get into that type of an exercise. We then had to start the exercise of visual meetings and so forth. And because it was a new thing in our communities and so forth, obviously many of our community members could not participate in visual platforms. It was mainly interested political parties, municipalities, in other words, councillors that were invited and so on. We had a program which was indicating which municipalities will be having those visual platforms and so forth. But I'm just giving generally that COVID-19 pandemic, it made it difficult to have the traditional face-to-face engagements that we used to have. But then because of that, we had to revisit our deadlines in terms of submissions. I think those will be outlined by our team. I would like, Madam Speaker, to hand over to the CEO of the Demarcation Board and his team to respond to issues that have been highlighted, looking at Rafik also. Thanks very much. And that is again.
It's the COO, Mr.
Oh, Alwani.
Alwan will take us through those questions, Chairperson. Maybe the simplest of them all is the one by Dr. Nyati in terms of the timeframes in which ward delimitation should be taking place. We don't have a legislated timeframe. We have an arrangement with the IEC to hand over the wards almost 10 months maximum before the local government elections. And that we do in order to afford the IEC an opportunity to be able to look at all the voting districts that might have been split so that they put them together and for them to roll out their communication strategy in relation to those voters that might have been displaced from one voting district to another. The other one from Councillor Cisco around the issue of the population. I think the issue is raising is about a ward that is having a population that is above the norm of registered voters. It is indeed a matter that we have been discussing at the MDB and the IEC to say, if you are dealing with the issue of ward, do we deal with the wards in relation to the population of the ward or the registered voters? At the current moment, our current legislative framework only provide for us to deal with the registered voters for reasons that are simple to understand, so that we know these are the number of people who have registered in this particular ward. Now, in case you have the population that is 28,000, the question was, how do we deal with the service delivery in that particular ward? The service delivery is the responsibility of an entity that you create. The norm that we are referring to here is just assisting us to say, in the city of Joburg, you need a councillor, a ward councillor, to be able to save almost the same number of registered voters. So we are not really dealing with the issue of population. So service delivery will be a matter that the municipality can deal with through the office of the speaker if you are having your ward planning service delivery mechanism. Because each and every ward might need to be having a particular service in a particular time. I think the one that the chairperson said he doesn't want to venture into by Carol Lewin about Ward 117. Maybe because we don't have the details of how the Ward 117 have been reconfigured, we might not necessarily be able to get into that space. But all the things that the chairperson has indicated in terms of how the ward is configured and how it can affect the voting district in a particular area is all lumped into the issue of the norm. Because if you have a ward, you might put a submission around Ward 17 and you say, we want this ward to be like this. Now, you find that your submission is within the norm, and your submission is compliant with quite a number of other factors or the criteria that the chair has referred to. The one thing that came in as a challenge, Honorable Speaker, you asked about the challenges that we might have faced, is that when you make that submission, you must look at whether your submission is not affecting the surrounding wards. You will know, Honorable Speaker, in the interaction that the chairperson had with Ward 112, there was a matter around Ward 92 and Ward 132, which are the wards that are surrounding Ward 112. Now, once you touch a particular voting district, if it makes the adjacent ward to be above the norm, then it means we still need to make some few adjustment in those particular areas. Yeah, I think, Arwani, if you have something to add, maybe around what Councillor Cisco has said, you may add, and around what the comments by Rafik.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Speaker. The chairperson spoke about the adjustment that we've done in the public participation process in view of the pandemic and all that. What then happened is that after we realized that we couldn't do face-to-face consultations and all that, what we did, and remember the board came up with the idea of face-to-face meetings in the ward delimitation process as its own intervention. It's not provided for in terms of the law, but the board felt it necessary that it will be good to, before the board can determine and ask for people to object, it will be good to get a sense of what people would want their wards to be configured. Be that as it may, then the program was disrupted. But what we did for all municipalities that we couldn't visit by the time the national state of disaster was declared, we amongst others, besides the virtual meetings that the chair spoke about, we then said, let's extend the deadlines for people to make proposals and submissions. For the city of Joburg specifically, the extension was from the 30th of May up until the 31st of July, wherein everybody was expected to make their input on how wards should be, and we then had also the communication plan, which is linked to that, just to make sure that people are aware of these dates and all that. It was very extensive. We were, for example, I think we were on Josie FM as well, communicating all of that, and a whole lot of other radio stations and newspapers. So that we can allow people, Speaker, you asked the significance of public participation. So for the MDB, that is a way of acknowledging that public participation is very critical. Hence, we couldn't proceed without extending that period. And over and above that, the ward delimitation process in terms of the law provides for, after the board has determined the wards, for that 14 days that the chairperson is allowed for anyone who might be aggrieved with the ward to send their objections. That was done. And I think for the city of Joburg, that was published in September for those 14 days. and just really to open up even for further for those inputs until when the board considered the objections and finalized the wards in end of November, to be specific. And then there was a question about the timeframes. There were timeframes for the ward delimitation. I think the CEO has outlined that one. With regards to municipal boundary determination process, again, we do not necessarily have a legislated set of timeframes. However, obviously, as you might have seen in most of our correspondence, when we are dealing with ward delimitation, that is boundaries inside, we can't be adjusting boundaries outside, which is municipal boundaries. So since 2018, we had closed for municipal boundary redeterminations. That is why the chair was saying immediately after the local government elections that the process will commence for municipal boundary redetermination process until before we start with the ward delimitation again. So the window period is more after the local government elections with regards to municipal boundary determination process. And the speaker asked the question, what are some of the challenges that we experienced? Besides what the chairperson has indicated and what you have highlighted, that people would ask for different things. Often what we pick up is that, just to add more on what you said, we always encourage that when this process is underway, it's better for communities that are perhaps in the same areas to sit together and try to find some form of consensus proposal so that you prevent a situation where a proposal will come from different interest groups and they are different but affecting the same community. So doing that, it's tantamount to just saying, Municipal Demarcation Board, we are giving you the right to determine what's for us because people are pulling in different directions. One of the challenges, obviously, is that, which is why I think one of the speakers was saying there's a real need for public education. Yes, we agree with that. One of the priorities of the Municipal Demarcation Board in the new strategy is to intensify public education and awareness, because that's what we've realized, that as much as people may be interested, but there's still a long way to go in terms of understanding the technicalities around this process. And that's what we're going to be doing going forward to make sure that we intensify our public education and awareness processes so that, amongst others, it will assist the communities to give their inputs in terms of ward delimitation. And then also, in terms of improving, one of the things that we have put together this time around, besides those pre-legal consultations that we have come up with, it's to say municipalities, it would be better to have functionaries. It may be just a few people who, amongst others, their responsibilities is about demarcation-related issues. What we find is that at municipal level, there may not be people who are conversant with these processes to an extent that the coordination at a municipal level for issues that relates to demarcations is a problem, and the inputs that comes from the municipal area are not coordinated to an extent that they may not be beneficial to the outcome that people may want. So it's important that you got people internally who, at least as one of their responsibilities, to take care of issues that relate to demarcation, and that's very critical. I think those are the questions that I made note of. Some of the other ones have been dealt with. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I'm right when I say time is our greatest enemy. I would have loved to continue with this discussion and hear more views from our communities. But I think we've come to the end of the session as per the scheduled time. I think our communities are empowered, though, in terms of how the demarcation, external boundaries, as well as what delimitation happens and who does it, the process, and also the importance of the involvement of the communities in the process. I want to agree with Aliwani when you say that we need to intensify public awareness and public education. So we need to do that so that we can get more comments from the public with information. Information is power. So I hope that next time we will elaborate on specific wards. We do have the maps, and the councillors do have the maps, and they will be taking their communities through the maps. So now I think we've come to the end of the session. Let me thank everyone. Appreciate your presence. Demarcation Board, Tate Manyoni, thank you very much, Chairperson, and your team, your CEOs, thank you very much. We really appreciate. I want to also thank Dr. Nyati. I know that you always say we don't have to thank the fish for swimming, because yours is about empowering the public. But we want to thank you as the Office of the Speaker. Sibamba ngazibini phele. And sibonge ku all our local media, our local radios. And I know Faisal has put an apology that he had to go on air. We thank all our local radios that are assisting us in making sure that the information reaches our communities, even those communities who are unable to connect online, but they will be getting this information through our community radios. And we are calling upon more community radios to join us every Wednesday at 6:30. I want to thank all the councillors that have been here. I saw Councillor David Foley was here. Thank you very much, Councillor David, for your presence, even if you did not get an opportunity to speak. Thank you very much, Councillor Pahadi. And I also want to thank all the councillors that are connected on our social media platforms, on different platforms that we have. Thank you very much to all our viewers and our listeners who are on our platform. And thank you very much to those who have also asked questions of clarity. I'm sure that everyone, I see Demarcation is saying we need more time. I couldn't agree with you more. We really need more time. Thank you very much. We really appreciate. And we've come to the end of the show. Thank you very much. The session is adjourned. Ria leboga, ke leboga le team ya speaker.
Leboga speaker, the team ya gago. Thanks very much. We will still engage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Everybody. Well done, everybody.